This video is sponsored by DECAL Works, offering 10% off all graphics to retail customers. Use the promo code RX10 at decalmx.com to receive 10% off your graphics.
Hey everybody, welcome to RacerXOnline.com and welcome to another RacerX garage build. I am your host, Chris Kiefer. This is Jay Clark to the right of me. This is his build. And we're going to try to do something a little bit different today. These garage builds, we get a lot of these, right? Jay does a lot of garage builds. Let me tell you, he works his butt off on these suckers. This bike was extremely fun for me. But in these builds, I like to have the question, why? Why did he do the things that he did? So I'm going to hand this thing over to Jay, and he's going to rip around this bike and tell you what it's like to ride this KTM 366 XCF. Jay?
Well, so just like you've been talking about lately, is I really like the 350s. I've been riding a 250 guy, riding big bore 250s for years, and 300 two-strokes on trail, but these 350s are, I think, I called it Goldilocks. It's just right. And then you go, well, why'd you make it a 366? And with that, the answer to that is because we can.
Okay, so this is my question for everyone out there, and I get a lot of emails saying, what makes up the displacement of a big bore? Who decides this? Why not a 360? Why a 366?
Right. So what happens with Cylinder Works, when they get a new model in there, say the cases and the cylinder, you want to check the cases to see what the biggest spigot it can fit, and then what the optimal size would be without having to do case modification. You remember back in your 125 days when you would maybe run a big bore? Okay.
I'm very familiar with big bores, Jay.
Okay, all right. So you would have to modify the cases. Well, in this case, most guys don't want to. No one wants to do that to a four-stroke, especially. So you want to have a bolt-on cylinder, and so with that, we kind of get the best size we can get. And in this case, on these 350s, it's 2 millimeters over, which makes it 366. With a lot of the 250s, we can do a 3 millimeter over, makes it 270 on those things. So it's really good.
Okay.
This bike started its life as nothing. I was on OfferUp, and this guy was selling parts. The guy had he had the engine and electronics, radiators. He had some parts. What had happened, his bike had gotten stolen, and it had been gone for months in Compton. He gets it back, but it's all just ruined, totally ruined. So he sells off the frame and suspension. He sells off some of it, and then I was able to buy what was left, and I got such a good deal on it. I'm like, and I found a frame on eBay from a guy and got a frame for $600.
So you actually put some work into this thing.
Yeah, everybody kept asking me, is it worth it? And to save. But I got a good, able to build this thing really well with my connections and build it and have a really inexpensive XCF. And the XCF version of this bike over the SX, I have an SXF also, as you know, and I love those bikes and the FC as well. But I like the transmission on this bike. Even on the track, this wide ratio transmission and the added 6 gear is pretty cool. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to build the XCF version of this. And so since we built it from nothing, we need a new cylinder anyway, so why not put the big bore cylinder on? So we did that. And then Jamie at Twisted, I needed a new head. So got a head, and he actually was able to help me with the head and ported it to match the big bore at the same time. So when we got this thing all done, I had him map it on the dyno. And that's a really nice feature. Living in Southern California, close to Jamie at Twisted, you're able to do that kind of stuff. And then it gets mapped perfect. And he does sell ECUs that are pretty close, for most guys. But when you can map it on the dyno, then it comes out 100%, as you know.
So having a Vortex is, for me, and if you guys listen to some of my podcasts, I'm a huge believer in a Vortex ignition. So this thing, the parameters that a Vortex has is a lot wider than your stock ECU. You can map your stock ECU and make a difference, but just not quite as much feeling for me with the Vortex than there is with a stock ECU. There's a lot more there with that yellow box.
Yes, the tunability and what they're able to do with the Vortex, they can actually change the timing so much in different places and so many more parameters than the stock ECU. So that's one of the things that really helps. And then a lot of the stuff, since it was a brand new frame, actually the frame was kind of crushed a little bit underneath. That's one of the reasons I got a deal. So I had my buddy Chuck Warren at Metal Tech. He does machining for a ton of the race teams. He welded it up, fixed all that, and then I got it powder coated by San Diego Powder Coating, and then just did a lot of the same components that I usually use, which anybody can read about in all the the links. They can see all the parts that we used in this thing. But a lot of the key components are some of the main stuff I work with, and the thing came out amazing, as you can see. You know, with the UFO and DECAL Works graphics and Moto Seat always makes it look amazing. And as you can see, I love the bike. And Racetech went through the suspension, and for right now, we're sticking with the air fork. I'm going to try to stick with it, I hope, for a while.
I say that a lot too, Jay.
I say that, and then and I say I'm going to try to stick with it, and then after I ride it for a while, it's like, I go, it's good.
Uh-huh.
And then I'll ride something with spring forks.
Uh-huh.
And the problem is I have 2 sets of cone valve on my 300s,
Yep.
and then I have KYB conversion on a couple other bikes. And so I'm going to try it some more today and at the track, and I'm going to and I'm probably going to end up doing something else, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. So I start out with the air fork. I'm really going to try this year, guys. I'm really going to try. And I get some valving done, and I'm happy with it. And then, like you said, I ride something with the spring. I'm like, oh, wow, I have front lean angle traction now. Huh. And then off goes the air fork. Here comes the spring fork. So
they did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job on it, the air fork, and they do a pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Like you said, I'll probably end up tweaking with it when I get my stimulus check or something.
So big tank, I see. How many gallons does this sucker have?
2.8. Okay. And what's nice about it isn't any wider than the stock one.
No,
believe it or not. You could look at it and you go, oh, it's wide. It's not. So you don't feel it in your knees. You don't feel it being this big thing. IMS has done a really good job the last few years of getting their newer tanks really thin, especially on these KTMs and Huskies, really trimmed in there. So that part's really nice.
So just real quick for me, guys, when I rode this, me and Simon went out and did video and photos, and I got to ride a little bit out here in the lovely high des of California. It's a little bit dry, but this is off-road related, right? So for me, right away, I just noticed how much torque this sucker has. I really like having that recovery, that meat when I pull myself up a hill. I can lug it. I can use third gear. I like that part of the big bore kit. In a standard 350 form, I can't get that meat, so to speak, going up a hill. So that is something I really enjoy with this bike. I can use third gear. I have a lot more traction. Less work for the rider. I'm all about working smarter, not harder. This size, for me especially, I tell my guys that are a little bit heavier, they don't get to ride much, a 350 is plenty for you. You stick a 366 in this thing, it gets even more fun. So that's what I really want to drive home here. Garage builds all have a story, just like Jay said. And this is his custom machine. So for me to hop on and say this is not good or this is good, I just want to have a good time. This engine provides me with a good time. The suspension, obviously, yeah, it's decent. I didn't get to test it thoroughly all day. But yeah, I mean, for me, hopping on, going trail riding, man, I had a great time. Even Simon behind the lens here, he even rode it. He's like, wow, I can't believe how much power this thing has. So for me, comfortable right away to get on. I like a stiffer seat. Moto Seat did a great job with the seat cover. It's just ribbed enough. Okay. And I like having a little bit stiffer foam on my butt. I don't really have a butt, so it's okay. But if you guys want to go to softer foam, they have different densities and things like that you can look at. Another thing I like a lot is a wide platform peg with sharp teeth. This is
Scar.
Scar.
Tie pegs, and we've been running them for a few years and really, really like it. They do wear through our boots a little quicker.
Yep.
But yeah, you feel planted.
Yeah. Gearing change? Are you still with the stock gearing? Or?
Yeah, I got a 51 in the back, which is now kind of the newer gearing. But yeah, I think most of them are running like a 50, so we went up one and gives us a little bit better pull up those hills.
Right. So Jay, you're going to keep this beautiful looking machine here for a while. I was asking if you're going to sell it, but you're not.
No. This and I say that, but I end up selling everything. But it's usually a year or two away. But this one, I think I'm going to hopefully keep for a while.
Yeah. So for me, very fun bike, stable, has enough excitement to make it feel lighter. If you guys are wondering, compared to a 450, I just did a podcast about this 450 versus 350, and on paper, the 350 isn't that much lighter. But man, when you ride it, the whole thing feels 20 pounds lighter because it's a freer engine feel. Side-to-side movement is a lot better. And for me, overall, less pitching. And when you're in a sand wash, you're gassing it and you drop down in the throttle, it doesn't throw you over the bars as much as a 450. So overall, just a lightweight, fun feel. I appreciate you letting me rip this thing, and I'm sure you can't miss. I mean, if you're on the trail, you can't miss yourself on this.
Exactly. We want that, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, guys, stay tuned for our next garage build. If you guys want to see more info, you can go to racerxonline.com. And don't forget, RacerX still has a publication. Print is still alive, folks. Go subscribe, enjoy. A lot of things you don't normally see on our digital website. There's a lot of good stuff in print, so go check it out. See you on the next one.